Hey guys, and welcome to Top Channel 101, and today we're going to be looking at Material Maker version 1.4. So if you don't know what Material Maker is, basically a procedural material generator, something like Substance Designer. 90% of the PBR materials you see, if they are not from photogrammetry, they are usually made using Substance Painter. In fact, if you go to ambientcg.com, which is a site where you can download free PBR materials, most, if not all of their procedural materials are made using Substance Painter. In fact, they even have a Substance Painter section where you can download the materials in their Substance Designer formats. You can see wood, grass, everything like here. Substance Designer is basically the paid version of Material Maker. If you want to get Material Maker, I'll be leaving links in the description, but let's see how it works. The interface is quite easy to understand. You work within your node tree here, and you have an outline of all your nodes, and then you have a previewer for the active node, and you have your 3D viewer here. Your middle mouse wheel to orbit your 3D. Let's add some material here so that we can see what we are looking at. Instead of starting from scratch, I'm just going to go under File and just load in a material from the website. So you can hit that, then it will load a few materials here. Let's get this sterilized brick and load that in. Yeah, so you can see this is the node tree here, and it's structured like Blender's node tree where you run from left to right, and the final output is always on the right here, which is our static PBR material. So you can see that everything is parametric. This is all procedure. You can change the colors, you can change the different things. So let me come in here and maybe add hue and saturation adjust here, and just connect this and change the hue a bit here, maybe to 0.5. You can see that whenever I click on a node, the preview updates here. Let me first disconnect this and reconnect it again, and you can see that this updates. Can even change the color a bit here. Most of the nodes you see here are basically the same nodes that we use in Blender. You can accept with a few different settings and maybe a few more. For example, if you come here, you see they have a blending node with different blending modes. They have this, I guess, would work as the color ramp. So you might be asking yourself, why would you use a dedicated PBR material generator like this instead of just doing everything in Blender? Well, the reason for that is because Blender doesn't have a rich collection of nodes and procedural textures are like this. And if you want to use this in Blender, all you have to do is go under File and export to Blender. It will create all the files you need as PBR sets. And let me just save this on my F, and let's call this, let's say XW for something, and then save. I should export in a few seconds here. Ctrl Shift T and load the materials. So you can see what we have. I can increase the tiling. Yeah, creating a material that looks like this in Blender can be quite a hassle because you don't have all the necessary nodes that you need. For example, we don't have these bidirectional nodes that usually just distort the mesh in different directions. Let's load a different material here. This is some sort of lava material. They start with a Voronoi texture and use a tone step to basically control the contrast of this. Maybe make it wider or make it less, and there is a fast blur basically to blur the details. From here, let's see, they're using a fill gradient to fill each patch of this with a different gradient and rotating it randomly. These are nodes that Blender doesn't have. That's why you can't really create complicated materials like this fill gradient. You can see each patch of this has been filled with this gradient, with a random gradient, and every time you change the rotation, you're basically changing the orientation. And in fact, if I disconnected everything here, I can just bring this fill gradient directly into the normal, and you can see how this is being applied. So if I rotate this, you can see how randomly these are getting applied. So we had a tone step and then a fast blur to blur this detail. Let's see how this looks with just it. You can see you can build on top of this. There are a lot of different nodes that Blender doesn't have. Here they're using a math node to mix this gradient with this, so that each of these patches have a different slope. And in fact, so if we get this and mix this, let's see, can we connect this directly? Because I see it's a different input, so yeah, it still works anyway. But you have this warp to kind of, I think, just distort whatever results you have by a different object. It's basically how you distort. So if I increase the iterations, you can see how this is adding damage to these. In fact, let's see if we take a look at this directly in the normal. Using the normal, we can, yeah, you can see how this is distorting everything. Yeah, I like how this looks now here. Connect that. There might not be a lot of tutorials for Material Maker, but the great thing is that because a Material Maker is basically the free version of Substance Designer, you can watch Substance Designer and they have the same naming convention and the same nodes. So whatever you learn within these tutorials you can be applied in Material Maker. You're basically learning two programs, watching one tutorial. So anyway, that's it. If you want to check it out, links are going to be in the description.